Okay, I guess I'll take a break from making AI-generated art for a second to make a YouTube video. It's gonna be another episode of Punk Rock and Arcade Top 10. The arcade is gonna be Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy Kong's Quest or whatever. We're in the Hornet stage, and it's very sticky. There's lots of honey all over the place, and I don't know if I can get through it all. We're gonna be checking out a band called Moral Law. They're a straight-edge vegan band from Colorado, I think, but they're playing in program skating sound. And then while we're doing all that, we're gonna be counting down the 10 best hardcore records of this year so far. There have been a whole bunch of great records. I feel kind of spoiled this year. Hey ladies, how's it going? Dan Frampton here, and before we get into the list, I just want to ask you to like and subscribe real quick. It would really help me out. Okay, thank you. Let's hit the pit. Okay, if you saw my last episode of Punk Rock and Arcade Top 10, there's going to be a bit of overlap because we were talking about underrated or kind of slept on bands last time. And it's no surprise that some of those bands are going to make it onto this list. Those bands I won't really go into so much detail to talk about why I like them so much. I'll just have you go check out that other video if you want to hear my opinions on them. So to start it off, we might as well start with one of those bands, and that's a little band called P.S. You're Dead. Very, very chaotic, very, very noisy. I enjoy them quite a bit. Check out my Stop Sleeping video if you want to hear me talk about them a little more. Okay, coming in at number 9 on this particular list, the 9th best hardcore record of the year 2022 is Heavy Steps by Comeback Kid, Canadian hardcore band who I've always liked. Okay, these guys write pretty catchy, pretty sing-alongable hardcore tunes, and I've always felt a bit patriotic knowing that they're from here and how much of an audience they have all over the place. And Heavy Steps, the record that they put out, deals with a lot of like real personal stuff, but it does it in a real catchy way. I love the hooks on this thing, and not only is it like really well-written hardcore music, it's just really well recorded and a joy to listen to in headphones. There was a lot of care taken to where everything sits in the mix, and it just sounds amazing. I don't know, it just kicks a whole bunch of ass. Comeback Kid, Heavy Steps. Go check it out if you haven't yet already. Now the next record on this list might actually be the most hardcore record on this list. And you can't get much more hardcore than Terror. The record Pain into Power is just non-stop brutality from front to back. I'm not really one for hitting the gym, I don't really go hard in the paint either, and I bet that doesn't surprise you. But I hear that listening to this record, Pain into Power, is really good to amp you up for gym type activities. So if you are that kind of person that likes to power through on the gym, you like to see those gains, you like to be a bit of a muscly muscler or whatever, then you might actually dig what's going down on this project. You know what I mean? If you're like, okay, I'm gonna fucking pump some goddamn iron, and in order to do that the most effectively, I gotta get hyped up to some tunes. Those tunes could very well be Pain into Power. Because what you can do is just put the record on, and you don't need to skip any of the songs. It's pretty fucking amazing from front to back, and it just rips the whole time. So you can crank on this record and just get to business, Alright, moving on with the list here, we're going to talk about number 7, which is going to be another band that I talked about on my last list. So if you want to hear me talk more about the band Sweat, well then you can go check out my last Punk Rock and Arcade with the thumbnail that says Stop Sleeping. For just a brief overview, they're really fast, they have a lot of guitar riffs, they kind of sound like a 70s rock band turned into a modern day hardcore band, and it's all very, very fun. Now the next record on this list might actually be the newest record, and I've only listened to it one time, so maybe my opinions aren't as fully fleshed out as they could be, and this record might end up a little bit higher on the list by the time we get to the year end. And that is metalcore legends Gospel come back after almost 20 years for an LP, a little comeback LP known as The Loser. This thing is anthemic. This thing is heavy. This thing makes you feel hyped up. This thing makes you feel angry. This thing makes you feel blissful and like you're flying. It has a very multitude of emotions that it takes you through, and it's very, very well done and very fun. Okay, so I think if you haven't checked out this little group known as Gospel yet, then their record, The Loser, is something that I think might tickle your fancy. Okay, we'll get back to the pit here in a bit, but until then, I'm going to read a couple user comments. The best way to get featured in this section of the next video is to send a super thanks. I'll read every single one of those, guaranteed. Other than that, I kind of just pick and choose whatever is randomly in front of me. Now, in my last video about Harley Flanagan, Indomitable comes in and says, "Thank you, keep these Harley videos coming. The dude is super cringe. He blocked me on IG, and I hear he's suing my homie JJ again. Lol, what a clown." Let's not forget Webster Hall. Yes, let's not. Justin Larson comes in and says, "Smash or pass," and that's on the same Harley Flanagan video, and I gotta say pass. Trash Can Jam comes in and says, "I love how much you miss his posts, but also call him out on his shit. Ha ha ha, real shit." Well, it's true, I like a good lol cow in my feed, you know? I like to be entertained by some cringe. You know, not everything on my feed is there because I like it. It's not all there for enjoyment purposes. Thomas Bellino comes in on my Rick to Life video and says, "This dude is Canadian for sure," like it's an insult. Ben Strahan says, "Hope to see the new Volcano record get some recognition on here. Gotta be at least 250 pounds to enjoy it." And I think that's a great line. With that, let's get back to the pit. Okay, it's top 5 time. These are the 5 best hardcore punk records that came out this year, and me saying that basically just means these are the 5 best records that came out this year in total, okay? This is the only genre that matters, okay? Do you think I'm out here listening to fucking trap? Do you think I'm gonna be talking about the goddamn new Post Malone record? Not a chance, buddy. So coming in at number 5 is a little bit of a Blink-182 love letter from No Pressure. Now, I've been waiting for this No Pressure LP since I heard about No Pressure, I don't know, like a year or 2 ago. I was like, I can't wait till these guys put out a more substantial project, and it came this year, and I love it. And it's just basically, like I said, a love letter to Blink-182, but in particular, like early Blink-182. The latest influence on there would be from Enema of the State type stuff, you know? And yeah, I love this record. It's 10 songs, it's just in and out, it gives you some jams, doesn't take itself too seriously, and just like the band's name implies, there's no pressure. And I also find it very interesting that they're doing what we would have called pop punk in like the early to mid 90s, but today if you say pop punk, you're gonna think of bands more like State Champs and that kind of thing, right? So these guys aren't really calling themselves a pop punk band, it's melodic hardcore because it's coming out on a hardcore record label and it's performed at hardcore shows to hardcore fans. The next record on this list is some more melodic hardcore. We're gonna be talking about Praise. I can't heap enough praise onto praise. I think that this group sounds amazing. I absolutely love what they're doing. But I talked about this band in my last list video too. So if you want to hear me talk more about them, go check out that video. But that's the last band that I talked about on both lists. We're going to be getting into the top 3 here, and these 3 bands are about as big as I'd expect them to be in the year 2022, you know? They're not super huge or anything, but they do have quite the following. At number 3, we're gonna be talking about kind of like a Midwestern emo-core band, I guess. I don't really know how else to describe them, but they're called Anxious. They're another one of these bands that aren't really a hardcore band, but they play to hardcore audiences, and they do have a couple really amazing hardcore songs. My favorite one of all of those tunes would be a song called Speechless. If you're gonna check out anything from this band, I'd say check out the song Speechless. But yeah, they're a very fun band, they're very tight, but most importantly, their songwriting is just unbelievably good. Their songs are super catchy and just an absolute joy to listen to. Now the next 2 bands on this list probably won't surprise you if you've been following the channel. And if I'm being honest with you, these 2 records are probably gonna end up tying at the end of the year for best record. But for the purposes of this list, we're gonna separate them. And they're not only 2 of the best records that I've heard this year, they're 2 of the best records that I've ever heard. I love these 2 projects. The first one I wanna talk about is Otoboke Beaver, Super Champin'. These women write some of the craziest, most frantic, most fun and energetic songs that I have ever heard. The way they play off one another is super charismatic, and they just have a ton of chemistry with one another. I love their aesthetic, the way that they wear those like summer dresses and shit, and they're just like super badass performers. This record is just like 20 some odd minutes, just rushes through it, and it's absolutely my kind of record. There are many themes on this record about like not giving into gender norms and doing what you want to do, being passionate about what you care about, you know, and following those dreams. And I think that that's all very sick, and it's not an apologetic record at all. It just says what it needs to say and says it really, really well. And it doesn't even matter that it's mostly in Japanese and that there's like a big language barrier between me and the record. You know, that doesn't even factor into my enjoyment of this thing. This thing is just so incredible in almost every possible way. I couldn't imagine assembling songs like this. It just blows my mind. But talking about songs I can't imagine assembling, we gotta talk about Soul Glow. These songs are some of the craziest songs I have ever heard in my damn life. So fast, so chaotic, so frantic, and it's just full to the brim with political messaging that just means so much to the band and really puts you in their shoes. And not only that, it just makes you want to slam around like a crazy person. The dudes in the band are so goddamn talented. The lyrics are insanely good. They have more charisma than anyone should be allowed to have, for Christ's sake. And they're just so dynamic and full of life. They sound so new, they're so fresh, they're so cool, they're absolutely everything that I love about music. Okay, so those are my 10 favorite records so far this year. What do you think? More importantly, what are your 10 favorite records? Sound off down there in the comments. Before you go, if you haven't liked, do that. Subscribe, join the channel, send a super thanks, and until my next upload, watch another upload.